I am Sophie, 33, and I always thought family meant unconditional support. When my parents told me they couldn't afford to bring me home for Thanksgiving, I understood. Times are tough for everyone. Then fate played a cruel joke. Standing in the airport for my budget solo trip, I froze. There were my parents boarding first class to Hawaii with my sister's children. I swallowed my shock and stayed silent. But some truths can't remain hidden forever. If you're watching this, drop a comment telling me where you're viewing from. Hit that like button and subscribe to see how a family's perfect facade came crumbling down in just 7 days. Growing up in the Anderson household always felt like being the understudy in a play where I never got to perform. My sister Amanda had the starring role from the moment she was born. 5 years older, infinitely more favored, and somehow always right in our parents' eyes. I was just Sophie, the afterthought. Our childhood home in suburban Minnesota was comfortable, not lavish. Dad worked as a bank manager while Mom taught elementary school. We never went hungry, but there was always talk about budgeting and making smart financial choices. At least that was what they told me. For Amanda, though, the rules seemed different. When she turned 16, our parents surprised her with a used but reliable car. 2 years later, when my 16th birthday rolled around, Dad sat me down for a serious talk about saving for my own vehicle. Learning financial independence is important, Sophie, he explained, while Mom nodded in agreement. I took his words to heart and worked weekends at the local grocery store throughout high school. By graduation, I had enough for a down payment on a 10-year-old Honda that broke down more often than it ran. Amanda attended an expensive private college, her tuition covered entirely by our parents. I received a partial scholarship to the state university and took out loans for the rest. We just don't have the same resources now, Mom explained. College costs have risen dramatically since Amanda went. The pattern continued into adulthood. When Amanda married Mark, a moderately successful insurance broker, our parents contributed significantly to their wedding and helped with the down payment on their first home. Meanwhile, I was living with two roommates trying to establish myself in marketing while paying down student debt. Sophie has always been so independent and resourceful. Mom would tell relatives as if my necessity was a personality trait rather than the result of their choices. I don't want to sound bitter. I built a life I'm proud of. After years of hard work, I became a senior marketing specialist at a growing tech company. My apartment, while small, is mine alone and in a neighborhood I love. I've cultivated deep friendships and developed the kind of resilience that only comes from knowing you must rely on yourself. But despite my outward success, there remained a hollow space inside me that longed for parental approval and equal treatment. Every family gathering was an exercise in smiling through comments about how Amanda has such a beautiful family, while questions about my career and life were perfunctory at best. Jackson and Emma, Amanda's children, became the new center of the family universe. I tried to be the fun aunt during the few times I saw them bringing thoughtful gifts and taking genuine interest in their lives. But even this connection was limited by distance and the fact that family gatherings typically happened when it was convenient for Amanda, not me. Frank and Judith, my parents, seemed oblivious to their favoritism. Or perhaps they simply didn't care. My father, now in his late 60s, had always been a man of fixed opinions. Once he decided something, changing his mind was nearly impossible. My mother, while warmer in personality, inevitably deferred to him in all important matters. Each year, I told myself to expect less. Each year, the disappointment still stung. September had been brutal at work. Our company was launching a major campaign, and as senior marketing specialist, much of the responsibility fell on my shoulders. 14-hour days became the norm, and by the time October arrived, I was exhausted but proud of what we'd accomplished. With the project successfully launched, I found myself actually able to consider taking time off for the upcoming holidays. It had been nearly 2 years since I'd spent more than a rushed weekend with my family. Despite our complicated relationship, I missed them. Even Amanda, with all her perfect life trappings, was still my sister. And I genuinely wanted to spend time with Jackson and Emma, who were growing up so quickly. So on a crisp October morning, I decided to call my parents about Thanksgiving plans. 3 weeks' notice seemed reasonable, especially since I'd need to book flights before prices skyrocketed further. My mother answered on the third ring. Sophie, what a lovely surprise! Her voice held genuine warmth, which made what followed even more painful. Hi, Mom. I was thinking about coming home for Thanksgiving this year. The big project at work just wrapped up, and I actually have vacation time to use. A pause followed. Oh, sweetheart, that would normally be wonderful, but I already knew what was coming. There was always a but when it came to my plans. Your father and I are trying to be more careful with expenses this year. The property taxes went up again, and we've had some unexpected home repairs. I don't expect you to pay for my ticket, Mom, I clarified. I just want to know if you'd have room for me to stay for the week. Another pause. Well, it's not just that. The guest room needs a new mattress, and we haven't gotten around to replacing it yet. And with your father's blood pressure medication doubling in cost, we're really tightening our belts. We're not even sure we'll do much for Thanksgiving ourselves this year. The implication was clear. My presence would be a burden they couldn't afford. I understand, I said, my voice steady despite the familiar ache in my chest. Maybe Christmas then. That might be better, she agreed, sounding relieved. We'll have to see how things look financially by then. After a few more minutes of superficial conversation about work and weather, we hung up. I sat at my kitchen table staring at the phone. This wasn't the first time I'd been discouraged from visiting, but it was perhaps the most transparent excuse yet. I decided to call Amanda. Maybe she and her family were also skipping Thanksgiving with our parents this year. Hey, Soph! Amanda answered the sound of children playing in the background. Can I call you back? We're in the middle of packing. Packing? Are you going somewhere? Just a weekend trip to visit Mark's parents. Listen, I really need to go. Emma is trying to pack her entire stuffed animal collection. She hung up before I could ask about Thanksgiving plans. Typical Amanda, always too busy for a real conversation with me. I pushed away the hurt and opened my laptop. If I wasn't going home for the holidays, I'd need an alternative plan. The thought of sitting alone in my apartment eating microwave turkey dinner was too depressing to contemplate. After browsing travel sites for an hour, I found a reasonably priced weekend getaway to a mountain resort about 3 hours from my city. It wasn't family, but it was better than nothing. I booked it for the Friday after Thanksgiving, figuring I could volunteer at a local shelter for the holiday itself. Making other people's day better seemed like a good way to avoid dwelling on my own disappointment. That night I called Megan, my closest friend since college. They pulled the money excuse again? She asked, unsurprised. Sophie, I don't understand why you keep trying with them. They're still my family. I said, the response automatic after years of making the same defense. Family doesn't treat people the way they treat you, she replied. You know you're always welcome at my parents' place for holidays. I appreciated the offer, but didn't want to intrude on her family time. Besides, part of me still hoped that someday my parents would see me as worthy of the same love and attention they lavished on Amanda and her children. Little did I know that in just a few days, I would discover exactly how deep their favoritism truly ran. Fate has a twisted sense of humor. The Wednesday before Thanksgiving, I headed to the airport for a quick client meeting in Chicago. It wasn't my mountain getaway, but at least the change of scenery would break up my holiday week. O'Hare was predictably chaotic, filled with travelers heading home for Thanksgiving. I navigated the crowds toward my departure gate, grateful I'd only brought a carry-on bag. That's when I saw them. At first, I thought I was hallucinating from lack of sleep. My father's distinctive silver hair caught my eye first, then my mother's familiar floral luggage. They were standing in the first-class check-in line with two small figures bouncing excitedly beside them. Jackson and Emma, my niece and nephew. I stepped behind a pillar heart pounding so loudly I was certain everyone around me could hear it. What were they doing here? My parents were supposed to be tightening their belts, barely able to afford a proper Thanksgiving dinner. A ticket agent called them forward, and I watched in stunned disbelief as my father handed over 4 passports and boarding passes. The agent was smiling, attaching priority tags to their luggage. You're all set for your flight to Honolulu, Mr. Anderson. The first-class lounge is to your right and boarding will begin in approximately 1 hour. Hawaii. First class. The words echoed in my head like a cruel joke. I remained frozen behind the pillar as they collected their documents and moved toward the security checkpoint. Emma was wearing a new-looking pink backpack with a Hawaiian flower pattern. Jackson was talking animatedly to my father, who had his hand resting affectionately on the boy's shoulder. My phone buzzed with a text from my client wondering if I'd arrived yet. The message snapped me back to reality. I had a meeting to attend. I couldn't fall apart in the middle of O'Hare. With mechanical movements, I made my way to my gate, boarded my flight, and somehow conducted a professional meeting despite the hurricane of emotions inside me. Throughout the day, one question kept repeating in my mind. Where was Amanda? Why weren't my sister and her husband on this family vacation? That evening back in my apartment, I called Amanda again. This time she answered quickly. Hey, Sophie, what's up? I'm just finishing packing. Still packing? I thought you were visiting Mark's parents last weekend, I said, trying to keep my voice casual. Oh, that was postponed. Mark had a work thing come up. She sounded distracted. Listen, we won't be around for Thanksgiving after all. Mark's been working really hard, so we decided to take a last-minute couples trip. Mom and Dad are watching the kids. The lie was so effortless, so complete. I almost admired the performance. That sounds nice, I managed. Where are you and Mark headed? Just a spa resort upstate. Nothing fancy, but we need the break. The kids are thrilled about staying with Grandma and Grandpa. You know how they spoil them. Yes, I certainly did. Well, have a good time, I said. Tell Mark I said hello. After hanging up, I sat in stunned silence. The betrayal wasn't just my parents choosing to spend thousands of dollars on a Hawaiian vacation while claiming poverty to me. It was that my entire family was in on the deception. Amanda knew our parents were taking her children to Hawaii first class, yet she directly lied to me about it. I opened my laptop and searched for flights to Honolulu. The cheapest economy ticket was over $800. First class would be upwards of $3,000 per person. Add in hotel food and activities for 4 people, for what was likely at least a week, and the total would easily exceed $15,000. $15,000 while they couldn't afford to have me sleep on their supposedly broken guest room mattress. The initial shock gave way to a cold, clear anger I'd never experienced before. This wasn't just typical favoritism. This was deliberate exclusion. They didn't want me there. Period. The financial excuse was just that, an excuse. I took a deep breath and decided not to confront them immediately. No angry texts, no accusatory phone calls. Instead, I would document everything, process my feelings, and decide on the most effective way to address this when they returned. They didn't know that I knew. That knowledge gave me power I'd never had in our relationship before. Let them enjoy their Hawaiian paradise. When they returned to reality, I would be waiting. The next few days passed in a blur of emotional turbulence. I canceled my mountain getaway, no longer in the mood for solo travel. Instead, I accepted Megan's invitation to join her family for Thanksgiving dinner. Surrounded by the genuine warmth of the Harris family, I felt both grateful and bereft. This was what family should feel like: acceptance, without conditions, love without ranking systems. You're quiet today, Megan observed as we helped clear the dinner table. I found out something yesterday, I said, keeping my voice low so her parents wouldn't hear. My parents lied about not being able to afford to have me visit for Thanksgiving. They're actually in Hawaii right now, first class with Amanda's kids. Megan nearly dropped the plate she was holding. Are you serious? I nodded, throat tight. Those manipulative gaslighting. She trailed off, her expression furious on my behalf. What are you going to do? I'm still figuring that out, but I'm done being the family doormat. That night, I began building my case. I know it sounds strange treating a family confrontation like preparing for court, but I needed evidence to prevent them from dismissing my concerns as imagined slights or misunderstandings. First, I searched social media. My parents weren't active users, but Amanda regularly posted family photos. Sure enough, there it was, a picture of Jackson and Emma posted 3 days earlier, geotagged at San Francisco International Airport, with the caption, "Off on an adventure with Grandma and Grandpa Lucky Kids." The connecting flight to Hawaii, I presumed. Next, I contacted an old college friend who now worked for the airline I'd seen them checking in with. Without explaining why, I asked if she could confirm whether certain passengers had boarded a specific flight to Honolulu. She couldn't give me detailed information, but did mention that the first-class cabin on that flight had been fully booked with a family group taking 4 of the seats. I created a document listing every instance I could remember of financial disparity in how my parents treated Amanda and me: college tuition, wedding contributions, help with housing, birthday and Christmas gifts, family vacations. The evidence was overwhelming when laid out chronologically. Then I called our family's longtime neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, ostensibly to wish her a happy Thanksgiving. "Oh, Sophie dear, how thoughtful. I'm surprised you didn't go with your parents and the grandkids to Hawaii. Such a generous gift they give Amanda and Mar every year, watching the children so they can have alone time. Every year. This wasn't a one-time thing. It was an annual tradition I'd never been informed about, let alone invited to join." "Yes, it is generous," I agreed, my hand gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. "When did they start this tradition?" "Let's see, I believe Jackson was about 4, so that would make it 4 years now. They always bring me back one of those lovely Hawaiian shirts. My closet is getting quite colorful." After thanking her and ending the call, I added this new information to my document: 4 years of Hawaiian vacations while I received excuses about tight budgets and home repairs. I debated calling Mark directly. Would he maintain the couple's trip lie, or was he perhaps unaware of the deception himself? Ultimately, I decided against it. This was between me and my parents, with Amanda as a willing accomplice. As the days passed, my anger crystallized into something harder, colder, and more resolved. This wasn't just about a vacation. It was about decades of being treated as less than, of having my feelings and needs dismissed, of being expected to accept scraps of affection, while Amanda received the feast. I researched family estrangement and the psychological impacts of parental favoritism. I learned that what I'd experienced had a name differential treatment, and it could cause lasting emotional damage to the less favored child. The articles I read suggested several approaches to confrontation, from written letters to family therapy. But I knew my parents. They would dismiss a letter as melodramatic. They would refuse therapy as unnecessary. The only effective approach would be direct confrontation backed by irrefutable evidence. So I made my plan. I would wait until they returned, give them a day to settle in, then show up unannounced at their home. Face to face, they couldn't hang up or ignore my texts. Face to face, I would finally have the conversation we should have had years ago. The date of their return approached. According to the flight information I'd obtained, they would be landing Sunday evening. I requested Monday off work and prepared what I would say. Megan worried about my emotional state. "Are you sure you want to do this alone? I could come with you as support." "I need to do this myself," I told her. "But I promise to call you immediately after, and if I need backup, I'll let you know." The night before the confrontation, I barely slept. Scenarios kept playing through my mind, from tearful reconciliations to door-slamming rejections. By morning, I was exhausted but resolute. Whatever happened, at least the truth would finally be acknowledged. I drove the familiar route to my childhood home, rehearsing my opening statement. I wouldn't yell. I wouldn't cry. I would state facts and ask direct questions. I would maintain my dignity regardless of their response. Their driveway held both their cars, confirming they were home. Tropical luggage tags were still attached to the suitcases visible through the garage window. I took a deep breath, approached the front door, and rang the bell. My mother answered, her face transitioning from polite curiosity to shock in an instant. "Sophie, what are you doing here?" Behind her, my father appeared in the hallway, his expression guarded. "I thought we should talk," I said calmly. "May I come in?" The living room looked exactly as it always had. Family photos lined the mantel heavily, featuring Amanda, Mark, and the kids. I appeared in only 2: my high school graduation and a family Christmas photo from 3 years ago. My parents sat on the sofa while I took the armchair across from them. An invisible wall of tension separated us. "How was Hawaii?" I asked, my voice deceptively casual. Their reactions would have been comical if the situation weren't so painful. My father's face hardened while my mother's eyes widened in alarm. "What are you talking about?" my father attempted. I saw you at O'Hare last Wednesday. First class check-in for Honolulu, with Jackson and Emma. Each word was measured controlled. Interesting, considering you told me you couldn't afford to have me visit for Thanksgiving because you were tightening your belts. My mother looked at my father, clearly waiting for him to take the lead. Some dynamics never change. It wasn't what you think, my father started. Then what was it exactly? Please explain to me how you can afford first-class tickets to Hawaii for 4 people, but not a place for me to sleep in my childhood home. My mother interjected. Sophie, Mark, and Amanda needed some time alone, and they asked if we could watch the children. The trip was already planned. Already planned, I repeated, like the trip last year, and the year before, and the year before that. 4 years of Hawaiian vacations with Amanda's children that I never knew about. That caught them off guard. They hadn't expected me to know about the previous trips. How did you? Mrs. Patterson mentioned your annual tradition. She enjoys the Hawaiian shirts you bring her. I leaned forward slightly. What I want to know is why the lies? Why not simply tell me this is something you do with Amanda's kids? My father's expression shifted from defensive to resigned. We knew you'd react like this, making it into some big conspiracy against you. It's not a conspiracy when it's obvious, I replied. It's a pattern that's existed my entire life. Amanda gets the best of everything. I get the excuses. That's not fair, Sophie, my mother said, her voice trembling slightly. We've always supported both of you. Really? Let's talk about support. I pulled out my phone where I'd stored my notes. Amanda's college was fully funded. I took out loans. Amanda's wedding had a budget of $30,000. When I asked if you'd contribute to a down payment on a condo 2 years ago since I never had a wedding, you said finances were too tight. Amanda got a car for her 16th birthday. I worked weekends for mine. I continued down the list while they sat in uncomfortable silence. And now 4 years of luxury Hawaiian vacations with Amanda's children while you tell me you can't even afford to have me visit for Thanksgiving. Do you have any idea how that feels? To know that you consistently prioritize her and her family over me? My father finally spoke, his voice gruff. It's not about prioritizing. Amanda has children. She needs more support. This started long before she had children, I countered. And even if that were the reason, why lie about it? Why not simply tell me the truth? The sound of the front door opening interrupted our conversation. Amanda walked in, her expression transforming from surprise to wariness when she saw me. Sophie, what are you doing here? Having an overdue family discussion about Hawaii and the couple's spa trip that never existed. Amanda's face flushed. Mom called me, said you were upset. Of course she had. My mother had likely texted Amanda the moment I arrived, summoning reinforcements. Wouldn't you be upset if you discovered your entire family had been lying to you for years, that they actively excluded you from family traditions while pretending those traditions didn't exist? Amanda sat beside our parents, completing the visual tableau of them versus me. It's not personal, Sophie. The kids love Hawaii, and Mom and Dad love taking them. Then why the secrecy? Why tell me you couldn't afford to have me home? My question was met with uncomfortable glances between the three of them. Because, my father finally said, his voice oddly deflated, we knew you'd want to be included, and frankly, it's easier with just the 4 of us. The brutal honesty stunned me into momentary silence. We love you, Sophie, my mother added quickly. But you have to understand with the children. Stop using the children as an excuse, I interrupted. This isn't about Jackson and Emma. This is about the 3 of you creating a family unit that deliberately excludes me. That's not true, Amanda protested. You're always so dramatic about everything. Not every family activity needs to include every family member. You're right, I agreed. But when a pattern of exclusion becomes this obvious, it's not dramatic to question it. It's self-preservation. My father leaned forward, his expression stern. What exactly do you want from us, Sophie? An apology. Fine. We're sorry you found out this way. Money, is that it? The suggestion that my hurt was about financial gain rather than emotional betrayal was the final insult. What I wanted was honesty, respect, to be treated like I matter to this family as much as Amanda does. I stood up suddenly weary of the entire conversation. But I think we're well past that point now. So that's it. You storm in here, make accusations, and then what? My father demanded. Then I set new boundaries, I replied. I deserve better than to be an afterthought in my own family. Sophie, please. My mother began, tears forming in her eyes. We can work this out. Can we? Because from where I'm standing, you've had decades to work out a fair way to treat both your daughters, and you've failed consistently. I gathered my purse, preparing to leave. I need some time to decide what kind of relationship I want with all of you moving forward. You're overreacting, Amanda said, but there was uncertainty in her voice. No, I'm finally reacting appropriately to years of being treated as less than. I moved toward the door, then turned back one last time. I hope the vacation was worth it. As I walked to my car, I heard my mother call my name, but I didn't turn around. For the first time in my life, I was putting myself first in relation to my family. The feeling was both terrifying and exhilarating. I called Megan from the car, hands shaking slightly as I recounted what had happened. I'm proud of you, she said. Whatever happens next, you stood up for yourself. The week that followed was quiet. No calls from my parents, no texts from Amanda. I focused on work on my friends, on the parts of my life that brought me joy rather than pain. Then exactly 1 week after our confrontation, my phone rang. It was my mother. We'd like to talk, she said simply. All of us, if you're willing. I agreed to meet them not for reconciliation, but for closure. Whatever happened next, the days of silent acceptance were over. The aftermath of confronting my family unfolded gradually, like ice melting after a long winter. Our second meeting, held at a neutral coffee shop rather than the charged atmosphere of my childhood home, was quieter but more honest. My parents arrived first. They looked tired, the kind of fatigue that comes from emotional rather than physical exertion. My mother had clearly been crying. My father, usually so confident, seemed diminished somehow. Thank you for coming, my mother began once we were seated with our drinks. We've done a lot of thinking this past week. Amanda arrived a few minutes later without Mark or the children. She sat down without greeting me, her expression guarded. Before you say anything else, I began, I need you all to understand that I didn't come here for another round of excuses or justifications. If that's what this is, I'll leave right now. It's not, my father said, surprising me with his direct tone. It's an acknowledgement. What followed was something I never expected to hear. My father, the man who had never admitted to being wrong about anything in his life, spoke with halting sincerity. We have favored Amanda. It wasn't intentional, at least not consciously. But looking back at the examples you listed, the pattern is undeniable. My mother nodded, tears welling in her eyes again. When you laid it all out like that, we couldn't ignore it anymore. The college tuition, the wedding, the vacations. It was all true. Amanda stared into her coffee, saying nothing. Why? I asked, the single word containing years of hurt. What made her more deserving of your support, your time, your love? My parents exchanged glances, some silent communication passing between them. Finally, my mother spoke. Amanda was always more like us. She made choices we understood, followed the path we expected. Marriage, children, a traditional life. She reached across the table, but stopped short of touching my hand. You were always so independent, so determined to forge your own way. We told ourselves you didn't need us as much. Needing support and wanting to be controlled are different things, I said quietly. We see that now, my father admitted. We confused your self-reliance with not needing family while rewarding Amanda's dependence as family loyalty. Amanda finally looked up. I never asked them to treat you differently. Maybe not explicitly, I acknowledged, but you accepted it without question. You participated in the deception about Hawaii. You've never once spoken up about the disparity in how we're treated. She had the grace to look ashamed. I justified it to myself. Told myself it was because I had children, because I stayed closer to home, because I called more often. And the lies about Thanksgiving this year. That was wrong, my mother interjected before Amanda could respond. We were wrong, Sophie. All of us. The simple admission hit me with unexpected force. After decades of gaslighting and dismissal, hearing them acknowledge the truth was both validating and disorienting. Where do we go from here? My father asked, displaying a vulnerability I'd never seen in him before. I took a deep breath. I don't know exactly, but I do know that I need time and space to process all of this. And if we ever try to rebuild our relationship, it has to be based on honesty and equal respect. That seems fair, my mother said softly. And I need all of you to understand that an apology doesn't erase years of hurt. It's a starting point, not a resolution. We talked for nearly 2 hours, setting tentative boundaries and expectations. There were no dramatic promises or tearful group hugs like in the movies. Just four adults acknowledging painful truths and considering the possibility of a different kind of relationship moving forward. As we prepared to leave, Amanda approached me separately. I'm sorry, Sophie. Truly. I've benefited from this dynamic our whole lives without questioning it. That was selfish. Yes, it was. I agreed not to be cruel, but because pretending otherwise would undermine the honesty we were trying to establish. The weeks that followed were a period of intense personal reflection and healing. I began seeing a therapist who specialized in family dynamics and adult children of emotionally uneven parenting. Dr. Levine helped me understand that what I'd experienced had a significant impact on my self-worth, my relationships, and my approach to conflict. Many adults who experience differential treatment develop an excessive need for external validation, she explained during one session. They work harder, achieve more, yet still feel fundamentally unworthy of love and attention. That observation struck home. How many extra hours had I worked? How many relationships had I maintained, even when they weren't healthy? All to prove I was worthy of being valued. During this time, my contact with my family was limited but intentional. Short, focused conversations. No pretending everything was fine. No sweeping issues under the rug. I also built stronger connections with my chosen family, the friends who had supported me unconditionally. Megan and her parents included me in their Christmas celebration. My colleagues and I formed a tighter bond through our shared interests outside of work. 3 months after the confrontation, I received an unexpected email from my father. It contained a financial statement showing a transfer to my account exactly equal to what they had spent on Amanda's wedding years before. This isn't a bribe or an attempt to buy forgiveness, his message read. It's a belated acknowledgement that you deserve the same support your sister received. Use it for whatever would bring you joy or security. I didn't respond immediately. Money wasn't the point, though the gesture itself acknowledged the inequality in a tangible way. After much consideration, I decided to use half for a down payment on a larger apartment and place the rest in a savings account. 6 months after that fateful Thanksgiving, I agreed to meet my parents for dinner, just the three of us. We met at a restaurant-neutral territory again. We've been seeing a family therapist, my mother told me after we ordered. She's helping us understand our patterns and biases. It's not easy, my father admitted. Looking at yourself honestly never is. But it's necessary. We talked about the future, about building a relationship based on who we were now, rather than the roles we'd fallen into decades ago. There were awkward silences and moments of tension, but also glimpses of something new, something potentially healing. My relationship with Amanda evolved more slowly. The sister dynamic had been shaped by our parents' favoritism, but we were both complicit in maintaining it into adulthood. We began with occasional text exchanges, then phone calls, finally meeting for lunch without our parents present. I took so much for granted, she told me over salads. I never questioned why things came easier to me and the family. And I never directly challenged the pattern, I admitted. I complained to friends, but rarely confronted any of you directly. As for Jackson and Emma, I made a conscious effort to build a relationship with them, independent of the family dynamics. I became the aunt who took them to science museums and bookstores, who listened to their thoughts and treated them as individuals rather than extensions of their parents. A year after discovering my family's Hawaiian secret, I received an invitation, not to join them on their annual trip, but to help plan a different kind of family vacation, one that included everyone and respected everyone's preferences and financial situations. The healing wasn't complete, may never be entirely complete. Some wounds leave scars that change how we move through the world, but I found a peace I hadn't thought possible, built on honesty rather than pretense, on boundaries rather than resentment. I learned that family, whether biological or chosen, should be a source of support rather than pain. That love shouldn't be rationed or ranked. That speaking your truth, while terrifying, creates the possibility of authentic connection. Most importantly, I learned that my value isn't determined by how others treat me, but by how I treat myself. The moment I refused to accept less than I deserved was the moment I truly began to heal. Have you ever had to confront a painful family truth? How did it change your relationships? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more journeys of self-discovery and healing. Remember, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is speak your truth even when your voice shakes. Thank you for listening, and may you find the courage to honor your worth in every relationship in your life.